Hey, welcome to the Doc Analyzes Anything, the show where psychology and science meet, and we attempt to explain any and every human behavior, including, this is the good one, casually translating your conversation through a sock puppet like it's another person. So I'm picturing like holding one and talking, like Mankind from the WWF days.
I the professor I studied under for my PhD, Jessica would at times had been known to, those little like you pull the trigger and on the stick and then the head opens and closes. She
Oh
had one
yes.
as an alligator because she went to college. The alligator was their mascot, and there were times where she would do full meetings sitting behind her desk with just the alligator head popped up, talking
Like
to you.
talking for her voice.
Yes, talking for her voice. Entire
I like
meetings
it.
like that, just to keep things interesting. So
It's a nice flex. I like it.
what what we really need to do is have her on, but just do it as the alligator.
I'm trying to find. I don't have any cool figures. I don't know. I've got the Last Airbender here, but it would literally just be like something like this.
Yeah. I
I'm into that. I like it.
I have several puppets out in the living room I could just go grab right now, but I don't want to sit under the desk this whole time. So
It's only cool if you can commit to it.
no, and I cannot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh
Mankind used to shove that sock puppet right down people's mouths. Anyway, you guys watch wrestling? Am I the only one?
when I was a small child, I was into it, and then when I actually was old enough to realize how fake it was, I got really upset and couldn't watch it anymore ever since. So.
Oh man.
Same.
If by small child you mean like 22, then that's when I stopped watching wrestling.
But I was sitting there like probably 4 or 5 years old, like talking about the wrestling, maybe even three, I don't know, because my cousins were all into it. My dad's like, that shit's scripted, right? That's fake. I'm like, no. And then I remember it was like sometime around then that Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan had the big fallout, and like one stole the other's wife, and there's all this drama. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is turning into one big soap opera, and I'm so upset that this is
Oh man,
not just wrestling anymore.
that's why I loved it, man. We have to do one on wrestling in the future.
Yeah, we'll do that. You can get all your. Actually, I know a guy that's like a minor league, like
Nice.
backyard, probably renting out churches and community centers sort of thing. That doesn't. Maybe we'll see if he wants to join us.
Somebody on the circuit. That'd be great. I'm in.
I'll
But
have to
that's
wear
not
the
what we're talking
singlet
about
though.
today.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about driver behavior and throwing a little bit of the traffic safety research. I know everybody's thinking, "Oh, ooh, exciting! We'll sit through traffic school again," but I think it'll be a little bit interesting.
I think
So
some people could use another course through traffic school.
we'll talk about
Agreed.
whether that's really what they need, or is it just we get so bored out there that we find ways to have fun. So I don't know.
Oh.
I am Dr. Steven Sparks, your host, and with me, as always, my co-host Kyle, Mr. Minivan Sturry here. And
Yeah,
with us
two of them.
today, is Chad Speed Racer Hartung, who's got to have a stick shift for no reason, just because that's what he does. So, welcome everyone.
Stick shift guy, huh, Chad?
What did Ricky Bobby say? I want to go fast.
I first of all, I agree with that. I like to go fast too, but when you said that, I immediately thought of Cartman's South Park episode where he just becomes a NASCAR racer and says, "Scott, go fast, turn left."
That's
So,
all there is to it. Two things: go fast, turn left.
yeah, unfortunately, you're on surface street, so the turn left part can become problematic if that's all you're doing. But
I'll tell you, traffic sucks with a manual transmission, but there is this feel of having control over the vehicle. You like become one with it. But it is a pain in the butt. Like I'm getting to the age where just relaxing and pushing the gas pedal is starting to become more and more attractive. Where this might be like a secondary vehicle just for like fun and nostalgia, but like getting more practical with it.
I can't imagine having to like do GPS, throw stuff to my kids, and also like keep up with like back. I know how to drive a stick. I would stall several times per trip, I think, because I'd You can't keep up. Too much hand-eye coordination.
It becomes automatic, but I had the other issue where I never stalled. I always peeled out because I always was giving it too much gas during the shift. But
Yeah.
it really is 100% just because you find it fun though at this point. Because I mean, assuming you can afford a supercar, like we can as humans can no longer keep up with the computers. You know, they are
Right.
much better than we can do at this point. So it is just finding the entertainment and being able to rev it all you want going down the road without having to put it in neutral.
Yeah, there definitely used to be a time where manuals were faster, but you're right. With the new technologies, automatic transmissions are way quicker than what a human can do.
And then with the electrics, like there is no shifting.
Yeah.
I just take off.
Just all torque.
Yeah. It's fun on surface streets around here. We live in an area that's a lot of old money, and so you'll be driving down the road and there's Lamborghinis and McLarens just regularly out on Woodward cruising around. And I would never do this, but I can imagine it'd be very fun to pull up to a red light next to a supercar and an electric car, knowing that once you hit 50 miles an hour or 55, you're not going to want to go any faster anyways, and so you can beat them to that speed and then slow down and go to the speed limit and let them fly past you. I just imagine that would be a lot of fun, but I would never actually do that.
I do that because my all-wheel drive, I can definitely get them to 50,
Oh, yeah.
but after that I am just totally cooked.
All right. So because we're going to talk some of the traffic safety research that I think is kind of interesting that we do in our field and the role behavior analysis plays, as well as analyze some driver behavior too. But to get everybody kind of thinking about my first introduction to this, paint a little picture for everyone here. Imagine, I think I was either just about to start the master's program or was first semester master's student, walking through the parking lot of Western Michigan University, and I just start noticing all these U.S. government plates. And like at first you're like, oh, that's interesting. You know, I wonder what they're doing here. And like days, weeks, months later, I'm just seeing them. And it's not like they're just sitting in one spot. They're moving around. And I'm like, this is starting to get a little creepy. You know, like I feel like, what are they doing here? Is it like monitoring us? Am I being followed? Are they here for me? You know, like what the hell's going on? Turns out one of the professors, Dr. Ron Van Houten, who I really enjoyed taking classes with and know quite well, he was doing research and getting grants from U.S. Traffic Safety Board to do driver behavior research. And as part of that award, he had gotten cars for people to use and then track their driver behavior. And so a lot of the second year master students were cruising around in these nice new cars. They weren't all nice and new, but I know like one guy had a brand new Cadillac CTS, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then he's like, oh yeah, no, this is part of the research. I just got the lucky draw. I like to drive this one around. And so we can talk about it later. First of all, I worry that there's a little bit of skewing the data on this, because I know if I was driving around with U.S. government plates, I would not be driving the same way as if I had just a regular old, you know, pedestrian. Like, what are the chances the police are pulling me over with government plates? You know what I mean? I'm going to take advantage of that.
It's like driving with a rental car. You care a little less.
I'm invincible.
Except that I have realized, like, when you don't stop to pay the tolls, they still just charge you afterwards. So that's unfortunate.
That's
but true. Just kind of cool. Like, that's when I realized, like, you know, over the years, he's had millions of dollars of grants. And I know people are going to say, oh, yep, see, it shows the money in science. That's why scientists are always trying to skew stuff. As an aside, how it really works is you plan out how much time and money it's going to cost for you to do your research, and then you put in your rate. So professors make over $200 an hour, but they only get paid for their classroom time. So they end up making, I mean, as a new professor, you're probably only making $60,000, $70,000 a year of classroom for teaching. But if you're doing research and say, okay, I'm going to do this research, here are my students, I'm going to pay them like $20 an hour for their research. I'm going to put 10 hours a week in on this at my $200,000 or $200 an hour. Now you can make some more money doing that research, but you don't get money off of the research that's completed, just off of that time you've planned in and put in, and then they kind of pay it all ahead of time. So there is no like, oh, we're gonna falsify this research, make it look real good, and get real rich off of this quick. It's more like if you're doing good research, you come up with either, I guess, good results could be that you have no result, but you've done the research well. You're gonna be more likely to get more grants and make more money in the future than if you're out here trying to make it look like you've come up with something cool when you have it. And so just a little aside that people tend to misunderstand that, like, oh, the scientists are all getting rich by telling us to wear a mask. Like, nobody was getting rich from telling us to wear a mask. They were trying just not to get sick. But you can make some money on the side by doing this research too.
This is a rabbit trail, but the idea of null results not being attractive funding wise is interesting to me, because not knowing how to do things or not knowing what works is just as valid, and we need to know those results as much as knowing what works or like finding the answers that we're looking for. It's always interesting to me that stuff doesn't get published as much.
Up until about 6 months ago, the people reviewing these grant proposals were just scientists, science nerds themselves. Like, all right, show us your methods and what is your testing. If we think it's an important thing to test and you have good, well-controlled methods, they didn't care if your results were groundbreaking or if it's like, nope, that didn't work, we'll try the next thing.
Right.
Nowadays, I don't know what's going on since everybody's leaving, getting fired, and they're stopped funding all that research. But historically, the idea that there is a conspiracy and there's big science getting rich, like, yeah, maybe the big companies that hire a lot of scientists to produce new products, they get rich, but the scientists themselves are not getting rich off their experimentation. It is all about trying to, first of all, if you make a groundbreaking discovery, that's really cool, but it's the clout. You know what I mean? Like, you're not getting rich usually being a professor unless you're doing a ton of research on the side, as well as writing a lot of books and selling those to your students and forcing them to read them and that sort of thing. So,
well, that was going to be my question was, so because you commonly see like somebody who's doing research is also teaching, but it's not required, right? You could be just an independent researcher applying for grants, but not also be a professor. That's part one, right?
Yeah.
It's not impossible, but it is much less frequent. Like, you'd have a lot more scrutiny because universities have research boards and oversight and all these things. You'd have to set up, hire an oversight, and prove that it is not, it's not that you have to be a nonprofit, but you're not doing this just to make a large profit, but you're doing it to further the science, sort of thing.
And then that brings up my next question, because we're talking about them not making a boatload of money just by doing the research. That's really about clout, doing the right thing, proving an idea. Is there such thing as that researcher or research group owning like something proprietary? Because oftentimes when you discover something but you're under a school, your contract, typically the school is who actually owns it rather than the individual themselves.
It really is dependent on the situation, what their contract says. Probably each school's different. Remember, at least the public universities are nonprofits, and so that plays a role. But a lot of people, say you invent some new thing, say we're talking about cars, electric cars, you invent new battery technology. The school may own part of that, or it may be that, nope, you have the patent in your name and now you can start your own company on the side and move forward with that.
Okay, so
or sell that technology.
Okay.
And now if you are working for a company rather than a university, then most of the time they keep that. That is theirs. Anything you discover there, you may get a huge bonus for discovering it, but you're not getting that payday yourself most of the time. So
yeah. Okay.
It's working at the university level is kind of the epitome of what many people see what they want when they are going to get a doctorate. And we talked about it in the what was that episode on Pride and Dignity, where like I feel less dignified working in the public sphere rather than working in an academic arena. But then I talk to other people and they're like, yeah, well, but you're out here actually helping people and I'm here just teaching. And so like both sides are feeling the other's probably doing best a lot of the time, but there is a level of clout in the academic field that you can never quite feel when you're working in the public. So it's very interesting and very different. It has little to do with money when you're getting into science and academia. Although, again, you write enough books, you spend enough time doing research, publish enough papers, start getting hired to come do talking engagements, you can make a lot of money, but your average new professor's not. So, all
We're
right.
feeling a lot of these government agencies are going to be making some very groundbreaking discoveries pretty soon, affirming everything that they set out to prove, and not necessarily taking the data that they don't want. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, when they come out and say, if they come out and say that they have solved the autism puzzle, we'll just know that they're full of it and they're just trying to basically
Yeah.
put their money where their mouth is when it's bullshit. So
So then will people like you in your field then strive to disprove that, or is it not worth going up against that large of a entity?
I mean, everybody will write it, we'll publish it, we'll probably do a whole episode on why it's bunk, but whether people listen to us or the talking heads, it's up to
Yeah.
them. Like, who do people trust right now? They trust whoever's loudest. They don't
Loudest,
trust
yeah.
who has
Yeah.
the most knowledge base. And so I saw a post today is people are still talking about how like the World Trade Center had to be an inside job because of the way it's collapsed. I'm like, that it's ridiculous, but whatever, you know, you're not going to listen to me if I tell you you're wrong. But for anybody
Yeah.
that wonders, and then we will get back to cars, I promise, the heating of the structural integrity was enough to weaken it and cause it to collapse. It did not melt the beams. And that's why there's a difference between, all right, jet fuel may not be hot enough to melt the beams, or maybe it is, but it is enough to weaken the structural integrity. So, all right, let's
This
move
is
on.
quickly becoming our grab bag episode.
Why do you guys keep doing this to me? Like,
You're welcome.
I like it.
I don't know. I feel like I'm sitting here like it's getting closer to hoodie weather here in Michigan, so I'm wearing the same hoodie because we'll do an episode on that. Is a hoodie a jacket that you can wear repeatedly, or is it a shirt that should be changed daily or multiple times a day? I wear it like a jacket.
We don't need an episode. It is a jacket that can be worn multiple times. If somebody's got an issue with it, come at me.
It's a blankie for old people. That's what it is.
It
Well,
is.
There's a difference if you wear without something underneath. So if you wear it just as a shirt, it's a shirt.
Oh,
But if
man.
you
I just
have
wear
a
it
shirt
as
underneath,
I just
then
wear it as pants too. Just pants. Like, I wear a long hoodie and there's nothing on right now underneath it.
it's classified as outerwear. So I think it totally falls under the jacket.
Another
Who
one.
are these animals not wearing shirts underneath their hoodie though?
I don't know. Sometimes Taylor puts the hoodie on the boys without a shirt on. I'm like, it's a jacket. What are you doing?
Yeah.
But another one like that. We'll have to just schedule this soon. The little mini episodes where we argue about everything, because
That's what we're doing now.
I know, but Brad and I really got into it the other day about apples, and I said that Red Delicious are trash apples, and I can't believe they're for a long time we're the country's most popular apple. They're just crunchy, wet, flavorless red things.
Yeah.
And he
that.
was extremely offended, and so we'll get into that and just have an all-out battle on small little topics like this soon. But in the meantime, let's get back to cars.
Fair enough. I'm ready to go on my Red Delicious tangent, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I always I'm sure we've probably done this before, or maybe we haven't, and we're introducing something new, but I'm going to assume I've used this on this podcast, this example before, of driving to really hit home the difference between rule governed behavior and contingency control behavior. I think it's the simplest and most obvious example, because almost everybody experiences where you're a new driver and you're thinking, okay, 10 and 2, checking my mirrors, watching the road. All right, shoot, can I turn right on red here or not? Like, really attending to those rules that have been hammered in during driving school to make sure you're not getting pulled over. Especially nowadays, I don't know if it's still the same way, but when they changed the laws right before I got my license, it was like you had 0 points for like 2 years. Otherwise, you immediately were going back on suspended or supervised driving, that sort of thing. And, you know, being a young driver, your cost of insurance extremely high, that sort of thing. So it really was all about, at least for a few months, not getting pulled over, not getting a ticket, doing everything following these rules. But very quickly, it becomes one of those automatic things. You know, once you're driving for a while, I can't remember how many times I drove home and be like, shoot, I'm here already. Like, what just happened? You know what I mean? Like, you're dazed off thinking, and it just becomes automatic. And so that really hammers home what we're getting at here is rule governed behavior. You have the rule, you have the description of the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence for the behavior that guides your behavior. Because we have verbal behavior, we have the ability to talk to ourselves. And then the contingency controlled is once it becomes strengthened in your repertoire, or it's shaped naturally by the world around you, you don't even have to know that rule. You don't have to be able to repeat it to yourself. You just do the things based on the history of reinforcement and punishment to get that outcome. In this case, getting home quickly, safely, what have you. But I think what's interesting is all the little things that are involved and become reinforcing while driving once you get to that point of contingency control, because it is that automatic behavior. You're going just kind of by on autopilot without autopilot, except nowadays you may actually have autopilot, and you're doing other things to keep yourself.
The future is here.
Yeah, to keep yourself kind of entertained or bored, or sometimes you just get distracted and you start going down a tangent. And so I think talking about some of these other things that we find reinforcing in general is pretty interesting, and we can kind of go into that. Like when you guys are driving, what are you doing to keep yourself entertained or busy? I mean, Kyle, probably with 4 kids in the car, you're just trying not to pull your hair out is a lot of it. But
yeah, I don't think I've listened to like the music I want to listen to, or the podcast I want to listen to in over a decade with my family in the car. I really am. It's more rewarding to me to have something on that keeps them entertained, so that, I mean, like, the sensitivity to there being like chaos in the back of this minivan with 4 kids all of varying ages, 5 to 13, is it like look at somebody the wrong way and then everybody's screaming, you know what I mean? So if I'm trying to stay as quiet as possible, and I'm trying to keep the peace as much as possible.
let's get to them. What are your go-to? For us, it's either Irish drinking music, because my parents played that for the kids when they were really little, and now the Irish Rovers is on constant repeat. Raffi,
Yeah.
we've got
Yeah, Raffi's good.
Disney music, we've got toddler tunes. It's just a playlist. Sesame Street.
Yeah, I mean, there's a time where the same thing could do all 4 kids at the same time. Now, I mean, with 13 and 11-year-olds, like, they are not interested in what the 5-year-old wants to do. It. I think Bluey probably is. I mean, I'm entertained by Bluey. If I can get that going, that's a good one. But the older 2 have their own headphones now, and they just like, we're done. We're listening to whatever I don't even know what they listen to.
Yeah. My wife made an amazing decision one time. We were up north, and she told him, "Oh yeah, it's not working up here. We just don't have good service. We'll have to put on the radio." And then she puts on like a alternative rock, station on her phone. And so now up north, we actually get to listen to music, which is really nice.
You get to listen to what you want to listen to. I find a lot, not to dominate this question, but if there's nobody in the car, I'm usually nothing on. I like no music, no podcast. I drive in complete silence, and it's
you're a psychopath. I can't stand silence.
Counter what I'm used to.
Yeah. So, Chad, as a person that most people don't allow near their children, what do you do to keep yourself entertained?
Wow, shots fired. Yeah, so I'm very much a music person, but there is a very, very big difference between when I'm driving solo and then when I have cargo like my wife. I have the music turned
What does
up.
she feel about you describing her as cargo, by the way?
Well,
How does
typically how I actually describe it as precious cargo, and she thinks it's
Precious
adorable.
cargo.
Okay,
I
okay.
was I was trying not to get all sappy on this show, but um
I
yeah, no,
understood that reference right away. Precious cargo.
yeah. And so I drive differently. But I'm always very much looking around using all my mirrors. I'm very safety driven when I drive. Part of that is because I like to have uh control. If something were to happen, I would know that I can walk away, say I did everything that I could. But I have music on. Music's a little bit louder when it's just me. It's much quieter when it's both of us. But that's predominantly for like background, right? If we're having a conversation, music is still on. Like music is never off.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's like a background stimulant that allows me to focus.
Yeah, I'm one of those stereotypical middle-aged people where I just don't listen to new music, and I'm sick of all the stuff I always liked listening to, and so I'm all books and podcasts. But um, with the kids in the car, I'm like very much, center of the lane, being safe, trying to keep them safe. And then when it's just me, I'm zooming. I'm gonna have a good time. I'm making this about having fun. If I have a long drive of my own, it's almost a game to be like, all right, where could the police be hiding, and like slow down to like just 10 miles an hour over the speed limit right as I'm approaching that area, and then speeding back up. And like I'm making a game out of driving, while also it's not like when as a teenager I'm like taking chances with other traffic or anything. But that feeling of like, all right, if I'm not passing everyone else, then like I'm losing here somehow.
I compete against the GPS is what I do.
Okay.
It says I'm gonna arrive at 2:47. Not a chance. Definitely gonna be there before then. But I feel you on like are the cops hiding? Where potentially could they be? So I often will push that speed limit, but I'm paying attention to the person that's a quarter mile ahead of me and looking for their brake taps. Right. If they tap the brake, okay, I know that I should be a little bit more cautious. And I always stay in the right lane. So even if I'm going a little bit quicker, because if they are there, hopefully because I'm in the right lane doing what I'm supposed to do, maybe I'm less likely to get pulled over. Maybe I'll get away with that couple extra miles over.
So you are like a studier. Like you analyze a lot while you're driving.
Constantly analyzing. Yeah.
Chad and I are very much the same way. So it's always nice. Like we're like, all right, we're gonna drive up north together, and like we're spotting, he's noticing things. Like we're both playing this game the entire ride up, while also in northern Michigan they just don't have speed limits, so it's kind of nice. You can just kind of do your thing up there. But
I do take it a bit further to go on that constantly analyzing things. So my wife, she doesn't really give me crap about it, but she's aware that I'm aware. So for instance, if I'm driving down Telegraph 4 lanes wide, I know which car is to my right, to my left, and how far they are, because if all of a sudden there's a pumpkin in the middle of the road that I have to avoid, I already know it's pumpkin season. Steve, don't give me that face.
Michigan pumpkins.
It is September 2nd.
Well,
I've seen them out on the side of the road. They're for
yeah,
sale.
and a lot of people are doing the pumpkin spice and doing the cider mills this past weekend. Anyways, okay, so there's a cooler off somebody's boat in the middle of the road, which happened to me once. I know that I can be evasive and get me and my, the people I'm in charge of in the car done safely, right? I can avoid it safely. Where I think there's a lot of people who aren't paying attention to all 3 mirrors and last second then have to adapt and potentially may not be able to do it. So I'm constantly analyzing to find out, in the event of, what can I do? And that's happening every single second.
I'm spending more time analyzing the gaps in traffic ahead of me and how I can use those to my advantage than looking beside or behind. But I do know what you're saying. Another example I thought of that's like very much the same way when you get into the analysis is, and I don't know if people do this as much nowadays, but I have this picture of like the older gentleman going on a road trip and trying to figure out the way to be the most fuel efficient. You know what I mean? Like, oh, look how far I got,
That's me.
I see it also on the electric car like forums with the Rivian or the Lucid, like, look how much efficiency I got on this trip, and like people are posting it and bragging about it, which I think is probably a same kind of function, but a little bit different, just because your ability to charge is not as readily available as gas stations are, that sort of thing. But it's almost like we all try to find our own game, whether it's efficiency or speed or even when like the route I'm going to take. I try to analyze what is the most efficient route. GPS has really ruined that, because now I check myself against the GPS. I'm like, oh, Google says this would actually be faster, but
Dr. Schneider talked about that at her talk last year. Susan Schneider, author of Science
yeah,
of Consequences, she was talking on climate change, but she cited a study where they like gamified uh, basically who had the best gas mileage in a trip, and like some of these people in cars they didn't think were possible to get over like 90 miles per gallon or something like that were getting, because they were coasting so much, just trying to beat out the other people in the contest to like have a chance at, I think it was like gift cards or something like that.
yeah, gamification can do a lot of fun stuff, and it is probably something we should try to do more of. I mean, imagine you have an app and then like you're just competing against people you don't know on things like that. It would
Yeah,
change behavior just to try to beat people,
right.
and find that reinforcing, because a lot of times driving is boring or frustrating. I mean,
Right.
sometimes you're driving like a jerk just because you want to get to that next pocket where you're not surrounded, you don't feel boxed in. I
Yeah.
was driving a couple weeks ago, and there's a car that every time there's traffic around, they'd go 2 miles an hour over the speed limit. And as soon as it opened up, they'd be going 20 over. And I'm like,
Oh,
so
that's the best.
I can't pass you because you're going way faster than I want to, knowing where the police tend to hide on this road and other areas. Yet you're
Yep.
driving me crazy because the lane's wide open in front of you, but this traffic around you is making you nervous.
Yeah, can we talk about driver frustration? So how about the people who don't use cruise control on the freeway? So they'll pass
Ooh.
you and then they slow down and you have to pass them and then they pass you
Mhm.
again. And, oh, that perpetual, that just drives me crazy. It's like, just put on cruise control. Just
So
go with it.
depending on where I'm going, I stopped using cruise control as much because I want to slow down when there's like the hiding places and that sort of thing. But yes,
So you're that guy.
You're
Got
one
it.
of those guys. Yeah. Cool,
but
Steve.
I'm so it does seem to be a pattern of human behavior that when someone is passing us, we naturally speed up without even realizing we're doing it. It's kind of that. First of all, it might be punishing to be passed, but also I think it's you see that thing going faster next to you, and you're trying to kind of match what they're doing. Maybe it feels like you're going a little bit too slow. We can analyze that a little bit further. I had not done a analysis ahead of time on why that necessarily is, but then you realize, okay, I've sped up because this other car next to me is going faster. I slow down
Right.
again, and you don't even have to realize it. You may not even be conscious. You just kind of have your set speed, your speed you're comfortable with, and then you speed up at those points, and then when they're no longer there, you naturally slow back down, and it throws off all the cars around you. And so I think it is kind of a natural reinforcement contingency that when people go faster, you go faster.
So
But
I no
mine,
longer use cruise control. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
mine is because I'm trying to avoid getting tickets, not because I'm
Yeah.
speeding up when cars are going faster.
Or oblivious to the people around you.
Well, I might be. Who knows?
I don't use cruise control anymore. I'm one of those like I'll drive my car into the ground before I get a new one. I don't like buying new cars, so I'm still rocking our 2011 Toyota Sienna, and it has 200,000 miles on it. I plan on driving it to 300, but it's getting to where, well, for one, those older cars, cruise control, if you go a little bit underneath your set speed, it'll go up to like 6 RPMs to like get you back to there, and I'm trying to keep it. I'm trying to keep the RPMs low, just to save the engine a little bit. So if I slow down a little bit up a hill, I'm fine with it. But I'm also kind of a slow driver. I don't care anymore.
Yeah, I probably stopped using cruise control as much when we started having the kind of self-driving autopilot features in our cars, because I like it for to maintain the road, just keeping it on the road if you're on a long trip. But if there's any congestion, it leaves a larger gap in front of me in the car in front of me that I'm comfortable with, and been living in Metro Detroit, you are certainly getting cut off as soon as there's that like size of a gap.
Right.
And then also there's a governor on at least my wife's car that stops it from being set over 85. And so sometimes I don't want to just go 85 miles an hour.
Wait,
Just
you can't cruise control over 85?
No, you can't use self-driving. You can still turn on the cruise control,
Got it.
but it's one of those things where I don't use just cruise control anymore. It's either the self-driving or it's cruise or it's nothing. It's like they're part of the same function. It's like pull the stalk twice instead of once sort of thing. I almost forget that cruise control alone is even a thing because it's no longer separate from the like self-driving network.
I think that governance is actually a relatively fair function in general, because there is a responsibility driving. It's not just a given right. Like there is a responsibility. And so I think not allowing people to then put other people in harm's way, I think that's a fair thing. So yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just throw in there. I read the story yesterday though, where someone's complaining because their insurance is skyrocketing from Tesla, and we got rid of Teslas once Mustard being crazy. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that before, saying some of the kind of horrible antisocial, whatever stuff. But they're getting penalized because you save money if you use self-driving. And so even though it's not to the point of where you really want to be, like keeps you well centered in the lane, but there's certain traffic patterns and things that it freaks out, it gets confused, it's not right where you need it to be yet. And because they choose to drive themselves, they're actually costing them more money, even though, as you're saying, like being aware and driving yourself at this point may still be safer. So I thought that was interesting.
Are we to the point where insurance companies are getting access to driving data, not just on the volunteer level to where you plug in a little widget into the thing, but like where, because we have the technology to do it. These cars, not just the self-driving cars, but like just about any car that's built in 2025 has the ability to technologically send driver data somewhere. Are we to the point where like insurance companies are getting access to this and then basing your premiums, like dynamically basing your premiums off of your actual driving behaviors?
Not officially. I mean, they may or may not be, but I think signing up for the insurance through Tesla, you are signing up for that. Like, you know that you're signing up for that. It is a well-known thing. Whereas I think most insurance, it would be frowned upon if you didn't sign up for that. And so they may be tracking it without our knowledge, but
read the fine print.
It is not like,
read the
fine print. It is not publicized that they are making any choices based on that. It's just on accidents and things like those types of issues. So
well, and they package it with like a discount. We tried it with the like phone app for ours, but it would just beep at us all the time. Like we weren't even doing anything, and we were like, we're not doing that.
I know that I'm losing money if I do that, so I'm just not going to bother.
Yeah. No, it wasn't worth it, like $5 a month or whatever. So
so I was thinking, like, driving fast as teenagers, we were always going out farmland, racing each other. I mean, sometimes not farmland, but usually. First of all, I was remembering back, and I think it's really interesting that, like, you were teenagers. None of us are great drivers, although we all think we're like race car drivers that were real good. But it's not like there was anybody supervising or looking. It had 100% to do with the car you were driving. Yet we all took this reinforcement. It added to our self-confidence. Like, oh, I beat you. Look how good of a driver I am. And like, sure, maybe that split second off the line, but unless you're in a sanctioned race, we're like, all right, nope, we're lining these cars up based on horsepower, performance, tuning, that sort of thing. Like, it is a really strange phenomenon that we all found pride in our ability to outrace a friend when it just had to do with either how much money you had, how good of a mechanic you were, or you're like, did I happen to have the timing slightly better than you on this one, versus nope, like that was me, it was all me. You know, I mean, it's a strange phenomenon when you think back to it.
Even on that note, is NASCAR that exciting? Like I don't watch it. I'm in Indiana, so the Indy's huge, but like, and Detroit obviously the same thing, but it's just like is it really that cool?
So,
Are these guys really that skilled? If you're just, I know, I get it. They are. To
there
call it
are
an athletic event, though, I'm very torn on that.
so there are millions of people that really like it. So it must be, but I am not one of them that watches it. I think like street courses with an Indy car or something would be more interesting just because there's a lot of turns and taking the correct lines and that sort of thing. That would seem more skillful to me than going in circles. But I will say I know you can lose like 10 pounds of water or something like that while racing because it's so hot and it takes so much energy. So you could argue the athletic part of it, maybe.
Maybe,
Interesting.
maybe. I mean,
Interesting.
I can tell you, like, vehicle wise, they're all on the same, basically the same uh level, right? So then it does come down to driver ability. But I'll tell you, the
Okay.
most skilled drivers are going to be your rally cross drivers because they're basically going through the woods at 130 miles an hour. That is just a 2-track.
This coming
Uh,
from the guy who drives a Subaru that's all souped up. No, I'm
I'm
joking.
telling you though, when it comes
I
to skill, and a lot of them, so NASCAR, no power steering for weight reduction, right? So they are cranking without any assistance on the steering. Rally, they have power steering, but they also have classes. So like what,
mm.
Steve? What?
no, I don't disagree with you whatsoever. I just had to call you out for your souped up Subaru. But
Soup guru.
it is still entertaining too because where did stock car racing come from? It was people souping up these cars to try to outrun the police while doing moonshine runs, and then they
Oh,
started racing
interesting.
each other. Nowadays, I was thinking about drifting, and like they did the experiments on MythBusters, which I'll bring up again in a minute because I have seen every episode of MythBusters ever. Um, but drifting is actually much slower than just cornering correctly and going as fast as you can on straightaways. Yet drifting, I think you could argue, would take a lot more skill, keeping that level of looseness in the back end, sliding out and around, than
That's
some of the
that's
other drivers.
slower than like rally car racing, where they like Chad's talking about.
Yep,
Because you're
Slower.
drifting like the
Yeah.
whole time. No way.
drifting, even just drifting around the corners, is slower than keeping traction and going as fast as you can without losing that traction around the curve. It is
But I guess in a
100%
rally car situation, though, you have to drift because like you would lose
right.
traction either way.
Right, you're gonna lose traction there regardless. And it is, if you see some of those videos, they're going like 120 blind curves, barely slowing down, and you look in the cockpit and they're just like, I mean, that is impressive what they're doing there. But just drifting, just for the sake of it, as fun and entertaining as it is to both do and watch, it's pretty much pointless when you really think about it. Now 100% pointless, maybe not, because as a young man, I had a lot of fun scaring the hell out of people that were unsuspecting in my back seat, drifting around a corner here and there. Remember one time, our buddy Russ was completely ready for it at all times, just knew I was going to do it randomly to mess with people. And we're on a side back road, nobody's going to be around. And I just hit the gas, start going sideways down the road. And our friend Marty in the back street, like screaming, trying to find something to hold on to. So I can't say it's completely purposeless, but otherwise it is just for entertainment, sake. It never comes back to it being a useful skill in terms of getting somewhere fast, really.
Unless you're in a mountainous area with switchbacks, it is actually more productive than not drifting, but that is so rare. And
I'm
there's only
thinking Tokyo Drift. I'm talking like you're just going down the road and
yeah,
drifting around corners.
doesn't benefit. It is going to
No.
be slower and not ill productive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I actually had a topic or a question, but I think we
Yeah.
kind of answered it with our sampling of folks here. My question was social status and vehicle behavior. So do people drive differently based on their vehicles? And we kind of had a sampling from Kyle in the minivan and you in a electric car that has power, and then me in like kind of a sporty car. But do you think that propagates out to the masses as well, that you can kind of begin to determine somebody's typical driving behavior based off the vehicle that they're driving? I mean, I look out the window and judge the person. I'm like, yep, I was right. I do that.
I think it's going to be a lot of variable there. but in general, maybe the person that is spending the money on a fast car, you can make, the assumption that they're going to be driving faster, or if we're talking about like a $250,000 or $500,000 supercar, you're going to have the two types, like one that's like, nobody get close to me, this is my baby. And then the type of like, I have so much money, it doesn't matter. Like, who cares about that
Yeah.
speeding ticket sort of thing. I'm just
Mhm.
gonna be out here having fun. And I think that changes probably more with age and experience than anything else, because the things we did when we were younger, absolutely fearless. And now I'm like, nope, I got to get home to my kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I always go back to 18-year-old Chad and his little Sundance, revving it up in neutral and shoving it into gear, trying to act like he had a stick shift. And so, no, it does not just depend on the car you're driving. It might depend on the car you can afford and have at the time.
I did that
Seems like
too
a really
much. I did that
seems
too
like a
much.
bad
And
idea.
it ended up only going in reverse because I totally blew out the transmission on it.
Ah, man.
So I
Uh,
learned that lesson.
it also, to your question, and I think you're going to get into it, Steve, but some of the studies coming out of Van Houten's work and other like behavioral safety on the road. I mean, they look into like how placement of signage
Oh yeah.
affects driver behavior. They look into like is it the cop car that's sitting empty on the side of the road that slows people down versus the like red and blue lights that flash and show your speed, like things like that. I don't know if there's any of those studies in particular that you were going to
I
talk
wasn't
about, or
I was going to talk about a couple generally. I wasn't going to go too much into detail on it. Real quick though, I was going to talk about like it also being interesting how this is all new phenomenon relatively. You know what I mean? Like back before the invention of cars, we didn't have any of these things. Like first American gasoline powered car were like made available for sale in 1896. First traffic laws for cars were passed in 1901 in Connecticut. We didn't even have traffic lights until 1914. And cars were still a luxury item until the 1920s. So it's almost impressive that we actually started addressing these concerns before it became an issue, because that's not the American way. But as we talked about, like with the Woodward Dream Cruise, that section of Woodward, I think it was like between 6 and 7 mile. And for those that are not familiar, the reason everybody talks about 8 miles is like that's the dividing line. North of 8 miles, kind of suburbs. South of 8 Mile, you're actually technically in the city of Detroit, except for a couple pockets where there's other little cities. But
wasn't there a movie called 8 Mile?
yes, that's why Eminem talked about 8 miles, because he was talking about going over 8 Mile and living there versus I believe
I'm kidding.
I
I know
know.
there's a movie.
But I believe he actually, at least part of his childhood was spent in Warren over on the north side of 8 Mile, and then other parts
Oh,
were
nice.
south. And so it is just a dividing line. It is not like a most dangerous area. It's kind of a place where people would cruise, but that's about it. But the first concrete road being there, it wasn't until sometime later that so I think the first concrete road was commissioned by the Detroit Road Commission in 1911, or no, 1906. I don't know. I didn't actually write it down. I thought I did. But the first lines, the invention of the road line for marking the different lanes in the different direction, that commissioner, like 4 or 5 years later, was credited in designing and inventing those in 1911. That's where that date came from. And so there weren't
Okay.
even lines on the road anywhere until 1911. California didn't adopt them until 1924. England, there were no road lines until 1921. Germany, 1925. And it wasn't until 1939 that markings were standardized to the United States. And so you would go places, there just were no markings. You just had to guess what your lane was and where to stay. And so we're talking about these things in the context of where we are now and how it works and where traffic safety is now versus where it was, and how this stuff was kind of just haphazard, like driving down the road.
Yeah.
And I came up with this idea kind of to talk about this because of the research is kind of interesting, and also because we can't just do cults and serial killers every week, otherwise we'll run off like super exciting material real quick.
There's only so many cults.
Yes, but interesting enough, on the news this morning, there's a story talking about how the Detroit first deadly car crash happened exactly 123 years ago today. And it was a wealthy gentleman riding his horse and buggy got hit by a car in downtown Detroit. And so, what would that make it? 123. So 1902 would have been, I think, if I'm doing the math correctly. Like,
Good math.
that was before there were lines or anything. Was there anybody even thought to be at fault at that point? You don't even know. You know what I mean?
And the car was probably going 30 miles an hour, but it's still a big impact.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't think it was going that fast. Like, I believe when I said like the first speed limits were designed, there was like, I don't know, 12 miles an hour in city and like 16 on country roads or something like that. But those cars just didn't go as fast either. But he did, get flung from the buggy, and it was a head injury. Otherwise, he very well could have survived at those speeds.
Fun
but
fact,
it's just,
I've talked about this before. My grandparents were Amish. That is how my grandfather's parents passed away as well. They were hit by a car in their buggy when he was like 3 or 4. Fun fact.
Yeah, that was the part that I was going to mention there. It doesn't sound like that fun of a fact, but I guess it's been long enough now. No, that happened. I saw on the news, it happened up north just recently, in northern Michigan too, where a buggy was hit.
Speaking of northern Michigan, we went up to Bay Harbor. Their speed limit's like 23.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a different number, totally different from anything else.
I've read they do that to make it more noticeable. Like you're more likely to pay attention to the number like that than
instead of
that makes sense and more salient.
Yeah,
that would have been my guess. Yeah, I also was thinking about it. So I was again the podcast Criminal, and they were talking about how jaywalking became illegal against the law because people are getting hit by cars, and everybody's upset. There were so few cars, the pedestrians probably would have won out, but the car lobbyists really put a ton of money into like, hey, you guys are all going to be driving cars soon, and look what's happening here. Prior to that time, buggy, like horse-pulled carriages and horses themselves were moving so slowly that you just walked and crossed the road wherever you felt like it, because the chances of getting hit were so low. And so traffic laws were very much the same, where like people are going so slow, you just kind of pulled out. There weren't the need for lights and lanes and that sort of thing. And now we're getting into, where do these laws come from? Most of them historically were just designed haphazardly, like, hey, we need a light here, we're going to choose red, green, and then I think later you added yellow based on the red and green of the railroads, like the signage that they used to know other trains were coming and when to like pull off to a side track, that sort of thing. But now, as you alluded to, the research being done by Dr. Van Houten, I remember one time he was talking about how he was having research assistants, and all they did was sit out in different intersections and track data on how many people were looking at their phones as they were stopped at a light or pulling by. And then they tested, I don't know, 5, 10, maybe 20 different types of signage to see what would affect driver behavior and get them to use the phone less. And I think also probably the different messages on there in terms of like tickets and that sort of thing too. And
do you remember which signage it was?
I do not. Do you know?
So I cited this for my thesis because I did a texting and driving. I tried to do a intervene on texting and driving through now I'm skipping on the term. It's how long it's been. The behavioral intervention where you report online. They do a smoking cessation a lot.
Self-management.
It was a self-management, but there's a term for it.
Right.
but it's either
Nobody
way.
listening is gonna know what the hell you're talking about anyway, so don't
I
worry
know
about it.
we're just gonna skip this part over. But no, I cited this research, and I forget which one won. There was like a appeal to your humanity, like somebody died or something like that. And there's another one that just like asked you to like check like somebody holding a sign, I think was one. I forget. There's a few of them, but it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Did you write your thesis on your phone while you're driving down the road? Is that how you...
We had cameras in cars. The participants were not made aware of what the target was. They knew they were being recorded while driving. We reviewed the footage and recorded data on how often they touched their phones. So phone touches was the behavior. But it was like null results because we couldn't really do the intervention that we wanted to do by like setting goals and stuff for people based on their baseline. But there was a lot of talk that I did in that paper about, even though they didn't know what the behavior of interest was, they still did not touch their phones at all. So some like reactivity we call, where like you perform based on, that you perform better in front of your boss because he's there watching you, as opposed to like when you're not being watched or something like that. So
Yeah, with the new laws and technology too, I mean, I'm surprised we're not in a position yet where there's a law that like, all right, your car yells at you whenever you look at your phone. You know what I mean? The way it is
yeah.
now, and cameras on the cars. I don't know if it passed or not, but I know there's legislation, I think entire countrywide United States, where they were going to mandate cameras that can tell if people are drowsy or intoxicated and stop them from starting their cars before they had a chance to drive impaired.
Right.
And so there's probably, we were talking about the car yelling at us, going down, beeping at you with using the app for your insurance company, but there's a good chance we're stuck going in that position at this point anyways. I know my
Yeah.
car does that, but I turn off all those features because I get tired of getting yelled at all the time.
It was contingency management. That's the word I was trying to think of.
So
It's really important.
so you mentioned you mentioned the railroad traffic lights that they started with 2 colors, and
Yeah.
I can't help but ask the question: Is it only me that feels like red lights are a personal attack? Like, I get feeling frustrated because like you got someplace to go, but it feels personal sometimes. And I'll say, typically it's when I have someplace I need to go, and me being the meticulous person myself, I'm estimated to be there right on time, and so now these red lights are personally stopping me from hitting that goal.
Yeah, I've had to get to a different level of narcissism where I just believe I'm more important and they can wait. But I do know that feeling you're talking about. And I don't, because I have enough information of how these work and how the timing works, and not a lot of information on the actual theorems and mathematics that go into it, but I do find myself getting frustrated with the civil engineers who have timed it. So I'm going to hit multiple lights in like a 3-mile radius. I'm like, why was that not timed out? That I'm only hitting one of these lights and we're alternating here. You know what I mean? So I find that part as a personal affront at times. There's a couple lights right by my house where like during the right time of day, you're lucky if you don't sit through multiple lights, and it drives me absolutely crazy that this road is so busy, yet that's a very fast light. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so like downtown Pontiac, they all change at the same time, which means if you are waiting at the first one, you're probably going to get a red at the last one. And then Woodward, they fixed all of the lights all the way from like Ferndale all the way up to Square Lake, except for one in downtown Birmingham that you will always hit. And I get traffic control and whatnot, but doesn't like keeping the flow going make more sense? And they all have access to our Google data. Why can't they just adjust lights based off of knowing where the population is?
Now, to an extent, they should be able to do that. At least movies like The Italian Job would suggest the not the original, the new one that came out with Mark Wahlberg later.
Hacking it.
Yeah, they hack it all. That would suggest that it should be possible. But knowing that downtown Birmingham area, first of all, it's crossing a major street right past there, so that might be why. But also, there is a crosswalk there where pedestrians and bicyclists were getting hit quite frequently. And so that might be a purposeful break in traffic being used to try to bring attention to the fact that someone may be trying to cross there, rather than it being they may be choosing congestion in order to prioritize
Protect the
safety there.
Fair.
So
Totally fair. Yep, I get that one. That one's I'm just expressing my frustrations because we're talking about cars.
Now, to let you take me down the rabbit hole here, though, and the frustration with the civil engineers, let's talk like traffic circles, or the way we call them, roundabouts. Like,
Oh, I like them.
I know, but most people, at least when they're first introduced, can't stand it because
Because they
it's
don't know
new,
what
it's
to do.
weird.
There's frustration with
Yeah.
it.
And the frustration with people stopping when it says yield, they don't need to stop. That there's that side of thing for me, anyways. But again, I said I was going to bring it back up. Mythbusters did the experiment, and compared to a four-way stop, you are looking at 20% more traffic getting through a traffic circle in the same amount of time. And so,
with drivers who understand how it works, or with people in Michigan when it was most recently introduced, as opposed to other countries that have had it for years.
I think it is still faster, even with the timid drivers who cause the backups. We're also talk about civil engineers designing. When you have a lane closure, there's a merge, and we're all being told, do not get over early. Get right up to the merge point, zipper merge, where everybody takes turns alternating left and right. And if mathematically and scientifically that's what I'm supposed to do, I do that. But I know I have 200, 300 people just wanting to chase me down and fight me because I've done it. And so it's interesting how social behavior can kind of counteract with the science, even though that social behavior is not really logical. In terms of it getting over super early, we were going up north. One lane's, or the whole expressway is closed down at a certain point, and it was like 5 miles back, and nobody was using the left lane. I'm like, screw this. I'll see you guys later. Like, I'm going to go up to the front because that is how this is designed to work. But I know that if I would have had to stop at a rest area in the next hour, I might have been assaulted. You know what I mean? Like, no idea what's going to happen.
Do you not let people in if they come up on you and you're in the right lane in those situations?
The only time I do not
speed up.
The only time I do not let them in is if there's gaps or other places where it makes more sense for them to get in, but they're trying to get just that one more car up, and they choose in front of me. And so there's a lot of times where there's a logical space to move into, and it wouldn't, hamper the movement of traffic at all for you to take that space. And if you're going to be a jerk about getting one or two more car lengths, then now I'm going to be a jerk about it back. But otherwise, no, I mean, that's the way it works. Unless there's a lot of cars doing it over and over and over again. They're not trying to zipper. They're just trying to, like, multiple cars getting into certain spaces. And then at that point, no, I'm not going to be as friendly about it. So
that drive back from up north, there's that stretch where it spreads out to 4 lanes. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I pointed out to Amy on the way back last week or the week before, I can't remember how long it's been, how the left lane, second to left lane, and then the third to left lane are the most congested in that order. And then the right lane, empty, except for like every 2 miles, one person towing a camper. And I was telling her, I'm like, I always stay to the right because I don't have the congestion to deal with. Everybody, for some reason, thinks that they need to be all the way to the left, and they're just causing more congestion unnecessarily.
The interesting thing I've learned from going up north in northern Michigan so frequently is, if there is a traffic jam, and I should not be giving away this information, because now if enough people hear this one day, I'll screw myself over here. But when there's a stop and go situation, it is extremely slow. If you get into the right lane, you are going to move so much more smoothly. It's going to go so much farther. And as soon as traffic starts moving again, get back in the left. And if you, without cutting people off, so they're not having to hit the brakes behind you and cause more traffic jam back further, if you can do that, you'll make way more progress than just sticking in your lane, because of those people that are trying to cut each other off to make a little bit of progress.
But also you'll have like the left lane merging into the second to left, which now you've doubled that lane. If you're all the way to the right, very few people are merging all the way over.
I'm talking very specifically where there's only the 2 lanes each direction, farther up. That is, just go to the right lane, and it works almost every time.
Yeah, the right lane is faster. You just have to do a little bit more back and forth, but it is definitely faster.
To really infuriate people, combine the two though, the merge with the traffic circle, there's one in particular, but there's several where, all right, both lanes go straight, one goes right, one goes left. Nobody going straight ever gets into the right lane. When it opens up, there's 10 cars there. I'm going to go past those 10 cars. And then every time someone is trying to cut me off or stop me from going straight, once it merges back into one lane, I'm like, not doing it. Like, why are we causing traffic jams unnecessarily just because you think there's an unwritten rule that you should be in the left lane to go straight here? You know, it doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm right there with you. Same thing. So I always go over to the right lane and I just jet it past everybody. It just gets so congested. But
Yeah.
you know, also my car is quick enough that I can do what I need to do.
Yeah. I can
take over somebody.
I have zero problem passing people in a roundabout when necessary. So there's that
Yeah,
too.
I mean, if I was still in my Plymouth Sundance that only goes in reverse, I would probably be the person in the left lane because I just know it can't pony up to do what needs to get done.
So when you're driving in reverse on the main roads like that, are you driving reverse in your lane, or are you going backwards in the other lane? You know what I mean? Like, how does that work?
It was for a very short period of time down in Southfield where I had to go from off the freeway into a neighborhood, and then there was a dead end, and so I had to reverse to like a corner store. That was the only time I really had to do it. Luckily I didn't have to do a whole lot of reversing on any roads, but it was the service drive.
So you're reversing down a service drive. How far?
Less than a quarter mile.
And you couldn't just walk that
At night. No, I had to move the car because it was basically a dead end. I wasn't going to leave my car in some residential area.
All right. I'm just saying, it sounds like you could have been much safer just walking, but that's beside
Probably
the
would have
point.
been. Probably would have been. It was night, nobody around, but yes, I had to go backwards.
Back to the research too. It's fun for me and probably troubling to most people in society to think that we are also the participants in a lot of this research too. Another one that Van Houten was doing when I was at Western there, he was setting up lane dividers and seeing, okay, in a pedestrian crossing areas, what type of physical stimuli in the environment will cause you to slow down and be safe for pedestrians crossing the road. And so if anybody was driving around Michigan State University at that time, I don't know why the research was done there instead of Western where we were, maybe so they didn't come to his office and get angry with him, but setting up different signs. And so if you're ever driving down the road and there's a crossing area and there's those tall, skinny, it's not a barrier, I don't know what he called them, like in between the lanes that make you like get real nervous and go real slow so you don't hit them with your car. Mm-hmm. That was the design that they found during their research caused drivers to be most aware and slow down the most for those pedestrian crossing areas. And so all of you that were driving around that area at that time, or maybe that have been seen those since, very likely could be part of ongoing investigation to see how that affects driver behavior. They also tested different colors, different reflectivity, placements, that sort of thing. And it's all, I think, quite interesting. And when I talked to him a couple months ago, what they were doing now was testing out motion activated lights for pedestrians on the side of the road to signal the drivers, make them more salient. Hey, there's a person that's going to be crossing here at night. And so that's pretty interesting too, where, okay, you're going down the road, all of a sudden a street light comes on and there's a person standing there. It might freak you out a little bit, but I think that's kind of the idea, that's freaking you out to slow you down. So if they start crossing the road, you don't hit them.
I've seen those before too. We were in Indianapolis over the weekend, and the Monon Trail that goes through town is really big, and there's bikers. But there's only, in that instance, there's only signs that say yield to pedestrians. It's not abundantly clear that there is a pedestrian going, and they're going on bikes a lot of times. And so you'll just be going, and all of a sudden, like I do a good job now, but I've had a few moments where I got yelled at because I didn't think like, oh, there's no pedestrians there, but the pathway is like blocked by trees and stuff, and so they come out very suddenly. Motion detected lights or detector lights would be really useful, I think, in that situation.
Yeah, and I think maybe some more emphasis on that when, during driver's training too, because I didn't realize until I talked to him, like, all right, how do I know when I need to stop? He's like, as soon as their foot hits the roadway, they have the right of way in those crossing areas.
Yeah.
If the pedestrian's standing there just waiting, you don't have to slow down or stop. But as soon as their foot hits that's a ticket for you. And so I was driving in north of Seattle, visiting some friends a year and a half ago, and I didn't slow down for a crossroad because they hadn't stepped in, and they're like, "What are you doing? You have to stop for them." I'm like, "Their foot hadn't entered the roadway yet. I'm good." You know what
Right.
I mean? Like,
Oh man.
so there's the social contingencies in some of these places and areas as well, where like that is a downtown area where they expect you just to stop. And probably because I grew up driving in Metro Detroit, where everybody's more important than everybody else on the road. Like, you don't assert your dominance here, then I'm going to keep going, you know?
That's true. There is a phenomenon in Metro Detroit. People who cross streets in Metro Detroit will often cross the street not in the crosswalk, so you have to be more cautious of people like coming out for street parking in between cars. Not everybody goes to the corner and crosses. And the signage for those pedestrians, I think it actually says yield to pedestrians in crosswalk as opposed to on the median or on the sidewalk. So, and you mentioned bikes. Aren't you supposed to walk your bike across the street? Right? I don't know if it's a law everywhere, but
well, for safety, but I think the laws, and they're not enforced the way they're written, but a bike is considered any other vehicle, and you're supposed to be on the roadway and not on the sidewalk.
Correct.
And so we're always taught walk your bike across the road and not get hit, like as kids. But I don't think that is a safety mechanism. You're supposed to be considered part of traffic and stay in the traffic lane and follow the same rules as the cars are, which then causes more anger with everybody if there's not a dedicated bike lane, because now you're going slower and congesting traffic that way as well.
Right. And this is a trail system that's like independent of the road. It happens to cross the road every now and then, but it's not like you're riding alongside the road.
Yeah, I've got one right behind me. We have like the Clinton River Trail, and it crosses.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wait, you guys mentioned motion sensing for pedestrian walkways.
Yeah.
Are you in favor of motion sensing over the pedestrian hitting a button then? Do you think that's a positive evolution of the function?
I think the way they're looking at it is you're ensuring safety, and you're ensuring safety when someone may not be making it a priority for themselves. So what if someone doesn't touch the button? What if and there's no actual in favor here. It is literally what is safer and what causes fewer accidents. And so if you're walking along a dark road, you're trying to conserve energy by not just having it lit up like daylight all the time, and the lights are lighting up as you're moving, that's going to be more salient and potentially probably safer from a driver perspective as pushing a button and then lights it up. But how many times are you sitting there, it's dark at night, maybe especially in like an area where there's bars or something, and you're like, I'm not even going to bother going to the crosswalk. I'm just running across the road here.
Yeah.
If it's automatic, if it's happening without, if you're basically getting rid of all the user error, then that would be safer, theoretically at least. And what I was talking to him about, I thought was really interesting. So my wife's car going down the road, and it has automatic brights. The bright lights are on all the time at night, but they darken depending on where there's obstacles or cars coming in. So when we're coming at another car, it doesn't turn off the brights completely. It just has a gap there, so you're not blinding that driver, and it changes as you go by them. And I thought, how cool it would be to do that technology, but it keys on and finds the pedestrians, and so it's shining on them for safety to make sure you see them coming as well. That would be pretty cool.
So instead of blocking it out, it then spotlights them.
Yeah, you'd have to find a way to do it so you're hopefully not blinding them and causing them to walk into traffic. You know what I mean? But it'd be almost the same functionality as the motion censoring lights, except the cars are doing them themselves rather than relying on the other technology.
As technology keeps growing, I think that's very possible. I'd like to see if these motion sensing efforts, because now that you explained it, I see the safety mechanism for it, and it does make sense. But I'd like to see it utilized with like LiDAR rather than cameras, because once you start having a recorded device, I think people may potentially have an issue with like their image being used or being recorded. If it's done with LiDAR, there's no recording. It's just, detecting distance, where camera systems, it's detecting, but because it's capturing, right?
Yeah. My car has LiDAR and cameras systems, but I know Tesla has gone full camera, and so that could be some issue. But they're recording you all the time anyway, so it probably doesn't matter whether you like it or not. It's just happening. But yeah, no, I see what you're saying, and especially with, I know, probably another episode sometime, but the Crime Stopper cameras that have been installed in Detroit, and there's been a lot of pushback against those because these computer-aided systems have been found to be less, able to find the suspects and automatically identify them with less accuracy with non-white pedestrians or people in the community, and has led to some false arrests. And so I think those sort of systems have led to more distrust of camera aided systems and automated camera systems in general. Is like, if it was really accurate, we'd all be uncomfortable. We're on film all the time, that we could easily be picked out for picking our nose and flicking at a windshield or something like that. But it's also nice if there's a no, Kyle's proud of it when he hits the windshield. But it's weird because we don't want to be monitored and filed and potentially getting in trouble, especially if it's a false arrest. But we also kind of like the idea of like, all right, if someone's robbing a place or assaulting someone, that they'll be found more easily. And so it's like, well, I don't want to be watched, but you can watch everybody else, just not me. It's a strange phenomenon that we probably should dig into at some point as well.
Yeah. My position is definitely greater good for society. Like, what is the greater good? And then at that point, there's give and take. But yes, we can definitely dive into that on another.
Yeah. And at that, we will definitely dive into at some point the idea that everybody's always voting and doing things and living life for their own personal advantage. But as a society, we have to make decisions based on the greater good. Otherwise, a few people are going to end up, doing well, and everybody else is going to get the bad end of the stick. I don't know. That's not the correct analogy, but it works. So, it almost has to be survival of, or the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, except for when we then get to the point in society where everybody is doing pretty well, then let's concentrate on helping those few too,
I'm in.
All right. So how are we feeling? Anything else? Any other thoughts? Any other strange driver behavior we want to see?
I only had one other thing, but I know that we're coming up on time. But I wrote down, so like Ohio's known for this, having like, I guess you could call it like
doesn't count
hitting camera, but like where they record your speed, then they just issue the ticket. Like there is no pullover.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You can literally just be driving, and for going over, you just get mailed the ticket.
All of Europe does that too, and you get point systems and stuff like that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So my question was, though, with that, behaviorally, do you think that people, which way does it go? So like signage that this area is monitored versus hidden camera that records and just issues you the ticket, which one were you getting the ticket because?
So which is going to control behavior more is what you're kind of getting at? Which
I suppose,
one's going to be more effective?
I'm not even sure which way how to phrase it, but I think that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
I would think it's still getting back to that idea of rule governed behavior versus contingency control behavior. You see the sign, you tell yourself the rule, oh shoot, I gotta not drive or like speed like this. If we're talking about signage alone, this is the speed limit, you get a ticket. I mean, we see it doesn't control my behavior very well. I doubt it controls many of you. And I think it really comes down to, as a whole, the people that tend to find it very reinforcing, their values are to follow the rules of society versus those of us that are like, all right, this rule, I can see in general why it's important, but it's not an important enough rule that I have to follow it that closely. You know what I mean? I can push the envelope. I can bend the rule. I'm not trying to actually go out there breaking it necessarily, because we know if you're going 150 miles an hour, you're most likely going to kill somebody eventually. But what is reinforcing to that individual plays a large role. If you're talking about, I just know that anytime I speed, I'm likely to get a ticket in the mail, and eventually they take my license away if I do it too much. That is certainly going to control way more behavior, because there is no like all right, what are the odds? It's like, nope, I'm going to get this at some point. But if you're talking about a sign that says, hey, this area is camera controlled versus it just being camera controlled, you just get it in the mail. Now, the rule is going to affect behavior faster, but as soon as people start getting those tickets in the mail, it should be pretty even. It's all going to control behavior about the same amount, because it is no longer what's the probability of in this moment of speeding if I get a ticket is, nope, if I speed, I'm going to get a ticket. And so what I think is more an interesting way to discuss it is in terms of what is better for society versus, and what will make people happier. Like if we had rules that you just can't break or you can't bend, everybody's doing the same thing. You won't get aggravated and mad at everybody else for like, oh, you're going faster than me. I want to be going that fast, but I'm too nervous, or I don't want the ticket, or oh, that person's being a jerk, even though they're probably just following their own contingencies and not really putting your life in risk. If you can't do that, then society may be more pleasant and happier as a whole, but your personal freedom will feel attacked, and you're going to find it aversive to yourself, at least when that rule first is put in place, until you get used to it. You know what I mean? And so I know in Michigan, like, you can't even get a ticket unless they can really prove that they have evidence of you speeding. If you were to be like, all right, what equipment were you using? When was the last time it calibrated? How are you accounting for Doppler effect, those sort of things, so you could potentially fight it, in court, then you can probably get out of almost any speeding ticket unless you're being really egregious, and at least get it reduced. But if you're talking about a camera in a place where, like, nope, it just comes in the mail, there's nobody to fight, it's just an automated system, you're going to feel like you're living in a police state, even though it's probably better for society as a whole. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like that idea of immediacy of punishment too being more effective versus, say like one day the system's down or something like that, you get away with speeding, and the less likelihood and the further distance from that punishment that you get, the less likely it's going to be under like total control. But then there's also just thinking, as you're saying that, flip-flopping it, like what would be holding us up from being able to have like a reinforcement based system that does the same thing, catch people not speeding and obeying the traffic laws, and sending some sort of, we know like even the possibility of getting some sort of like gift card like in a drawing or something like that can be really effective too. So, but I've never seen anything like that.
I think that would depend a lot on the person and what level of reinforcement they would need for it to control their behavior. So you think about like someone's making $1 million a year versus someone that's living under the poverty line.
Yeah.
If you're making that much money, whatever you're sending me probably isn't going to be enough to effectively change my behavior. But if I'm struggling and any little bit helps, then that certainly would. And so you're really weighing out the size of the reinforcer. Is it more reinforcing to enjoy my time driving, being crazy, having fun out there, and getting to where I'm trying to go faster, even though we know that people that are like speeding and going faster are rarely there more than a minute or two ahead of the other person, that like if they're both traveling and leaving the same place and getting the same time. It is about the reinforcing nature of driving like that. Sure. And so you have to weigh that out and make whatever the reinforcer is that you can receive for safe driving outweigh that level of reinforcement, and that's not going to be consistent for most people. So it's much easier to have a punishment-based system, at least for driving. Not necessarily for other things in society we'll get into later, but for that, it makes much more sense. But that's because the fee, the fine, whatever, could be relatively minimal to some people versus others, and that sort of thing. The extent to it controls behavior. It's always about the size of the outcome and the probability of the outcome. And I met a professor one time from another school I'm not associated with, so I won't say any names, and hopefully nobody tracks him down, but who was explaining, like, listen, I go as fast as I can safely at all times, knowing that every 2 or 3 years I'm going to get a ticket. And I feel that the reinforcing nature of the driving and the time saved outweigh that cost of increased insurance and the ticket every few years. And so the probability of getting caught any given day or even any given year is low enough that it doesn't affect the behavior. But if you were immediately losing your license on the first go, then that would be so sizable. You'd be like, oh shoot, nope, I'm not doing that anymore. Now, the penalty to rest of society, as people can't keep employment and things like that because everybody's losing their license on a regular basis, would have the detrimental effect. But if you're like in Europe where you're talking about, nope, I am literally just probability is 100%. I'm going to keep getting these tickets all the time. Then that's probably going to control way more behavior, even if you have enough money that it doesn't negatively affect you, any individual ticket,
Right. True.
So
This is not necessarily a society I want to live in, but imagine, just to your question of like the positive reinforcement, assuming that all vehicles that are out there are propagating information based off your driving behaviors somewhere
Mhm.
to some database. So then the society or government then issues a driving tax that starts at 5%, and you're rewarded as a good driver, where it goes down to a maximum of 0. And if you're a poor driver, it goes up to a maximum of 10. That could be that positive and negative equalizer for positive
Yeah.
driving well or driving poorly.
It might
yeah,
eliminate the need for as many like traffic cops too, because now you're basing it on like somebody might say like, hey, it's not a big deal to me. Like I'll go ahead and pay that fine, and speed and do whatever. But also create more, safe situations because a lot of people it'd be more rewarding to.
With it
that, that,
with a percentage base, though, then you're
Oh, percentage
multimillionaire.
base.
Yeah,
That's
percentage
true.
base. So then you're multimillionaire. It's a larger
That's true.
chunk. Like
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, okay, maybe you don't have to pay for your registration. That's the positive thing. You're a good driver. Your registration's covered. But if it's a Tahoe, it's going to be a static amount. But percentage based off of your income, that would then be more of an equalizer.
you're gonna have a lot of
Yeah.
people fighting back on that because,
I said
but
it's not a society I want to live in, but I'm saying that would be one way to
I
enact a
wouldn't,
positive reinforcer that would then be like fair across the masses.
I
I mean,
wouldn't be surprised.
people fought against like drinking and driving when that became a law too. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's not some sort of reinforcement based system in at some point to do that sort of thing, because, and I can tell you've not been paying attention to all the episodes we put out, because the progress episode kind of talks about this, but like needing to set society up based on pro-social behavior, because jobs are just going away. Everything's becoming automated. At some point, there won't be enough work for people to all survive. And so we'll have to have some other alternatives out there. And so if we're basing most of society based on reinforcement in general, to give everybody the ability to have something extra and not just be, all right, we're in this communist society where everybody has exactly the same, and now everybody's, you may have all your needs met, but in general you'll have less satisfaction because you can't have what your neighbor doesn't have, that sort of thing, like we've gotten used to in this capitalist society. Having that sort of setup where, okay, yep, everybody pays a certain amount based on, maybe it's the cost of their vehicle, and so that is, if you have a more expensive vehicle, you'll have more savings, and that's how you address it, based on income rather than actually income itself. Something like that very well could control behavior, and eventually we're all going to be hooked up to the same network, and driver behavior will be analyzed, whether it's used or not, who knows. But it all basically already is. We're all constantly like being monitored by traffic cameras and that sort of thing. So that might be a way, if designed well enough, to not send people off the deep end when it's first implemented. It might be a more successful way to do it without people feeling like they're in a police state and being punished for every little way they step out of line.
yeah.
Good talk.
Yeah, I feel like every time we're here, we get like to some interesting stuff right at the end with Chad, and then we're like, oh, we're out of time though. Cutting that out. See you later. So
For next time.
well, yeah, hopefully people didn't find some of the just traffic-based discussion too boring there. I think knowing how our science is being used to effectively change behavior at least is interesting, and if you don't, you'll probably at least find it troubling that you're part of an experiment you're not aware of. But it's interesting there. It just may be more on the horror side rather than on the good, real entertainment side of things here. But if we got nothing else, I'll end the way I always do. Just try
On a
to look
happy note.
on a happy note. Try to look towards the positive, find a way to have an entertaining and interesting life without racing around and putting people's lives at risk. And, you know, always live to set up your life for tomorrow, but live for today, because you never know when Chad might be driving down the next road backwards and it could end right that fast. So be careful out there and find a way to enjoy life every day.
Chad in reverse. Look out.